Will the Dems ever win again, as long as they keep hating men? Our video of the day is a 2-for-1 man haters special. First up, Michelle trashes dudes while urging women to act more like them.
We're always hedging, because in the back of our minds, we weren't raised with the certainty of maleness that, kind of the confidence that young men in their 30s have, which they haven't earned, they just have it.
But it's something you work at, I feel not confident sometimes, and then I work on it and I can feel more confident, but nobody's really confident.
Yeah.
Everybody's insecure.
Everybody's a
at some point, nobody wakes up and is like, unless you're like a true stone cold psychopath at any age, really.
Yeah.
And what she's talking about is maybe there are the men out there, they're like, women, when you get older, you're gross, like, ew. But those are men who are not having sex with anyone.
Yes.
And I truly do not care about the opinions of those men, and I have a lot less money than she does.
Yeah.
So really, you kind of...
Are Democrats setting themselves up to lose again by constantly bashing men? In today's video, we get a double dose of that man-hater energy. First up, Michelle Obama takes a shot at men while encouraging women to act more like them. She says guys are just naturally confident even when they haven't earned it, and that women are always second-guessing themselves. But let's be real, nobody is 100% confident all the time, and acting like men have some magical edge isn't exactly helpful. Then Kat Timpf jumps in, pointing out the irony.
Even if they run Michelle. According to a new poll, Michelle Obama isn't as strong a Democratic candidate against former President Donald Trump as many Dems would have you believe. In a hypothetical matchup, my favorite kind, Trump wins with 47% of the vote compared to Michelle Obama's 44%. I guess some of the kids whose school lunches she ruined are finally old enough to vote.
Point, Kat. It also represents Democrats continuing to be out of touch with the same group of people that voted for Trump, which is why they lost. Some people are feeling like there's no hope because of Donald Trump going to be the president, but some people are feeling hope for the first time in a long time. A lot of the people in those flyover states who haven't had their concerns addressed by President Obama and the administration before that. So sure, some people are feeling hopeless, but to say all Americans, like you were saying, if this continues, Democrats are going to keep...
Michelle says women get treated like they're gross as they age, but it's not exactly coming from guys anyone's interested in anyway. She brushes those opinions off, saying she doesn't care what those types of men think. Fair enough, but the whole rant feels more like a blame game than anything productive. Then Gutfeld takes his turn and doesn't hold back. He tears into Michelle's carefully managed image with sarcasm sharper than a designer stiletto. He jokes that even if Democrats ran Michelle for president...
Michelle Obama surprised fans on our new podcast by saying her pet peeve about her husband is that he's chronically late. For example, we're still waiting on him to admit he's from Kenya. And as for Barack's pet peeve about Michelle, he's mad that she keeps leaving the toilet seat up. When she cleans it. When she cleans it.
She wouldn't beat Trump. A recent poll backs that up. Trump wins 47% to her 44%. Gutfeld jokes that maybe the kids who hated her school lunch rules finally got old enough to vote, and remember, it all shows how disconnected the Democrats are from the average voter. Michelle's speeches may sound inspiring to her base, but to many Americans, it feels like more of the same, lectures and attitude instead of real solutions. The party keeps missing the mark by focusing on identity politics and ignoring the people who actually put Trump.
Have to use our voices to make these choices clear to the men that we love. Our lives are worth more than their anger and disappointment.
What's that pitter-patter sound I'm hearing in the background? It's the footsteps of Barack running to vote for Trump.
In office, the ones in middle, America who feel ignored. Michelle's been the face of the party's feel-good brand for years. Always ready with a polished story, a thoughtful sigh, and a motivational But to critics like Gutfeld and Timpf, it all feels staged. She's painted as this down-to-earth figure, but her lifestyle, her speaking tours, and her huge book deals say otherwise. Tickets to her events cost more than rent in the neighborhoods she claims to speak for. Then there's the running joke about Michelle calling Barack out for always being late.
But Michelle Obama says the deportations keep her up at night. So maybe there is some truth to Barack's birth certificate. And way to tip off Trump. Oh, please, I'm really worried about these deportations. I mean, just get a divorce already. Don't try to get him deported. There's a lot of conflation going on here. Deporting illegal immigrants isn't this.
Gutfeld flips that into a jab. We're still waiting for him to admit he's from Kenya. It's sharp, it's bold, and it's exactly the kind of commentary that cuts through the media spin. He continues, saying Michelle pretends she doesn't want to be in politics, yet she's constantly involved, sliding into every debate with another polished line. Timpf adds her own hit, joking about Michelle using inspirational quotes to guilt-trip men into voting the way she wants.
Julie, she says women are invisible. Which women are she talking about? Oh, I see her women in commercials, in TV shows. They're all over the place and they're all yelling at everybody, telling them, I'm a woman.
She's got some serious issues. She needs to go to therapy.
Yes.
And maybe stop doing radio just altogether, because we don't want to hear her speak. But she talks about, how young men were confident, which makes sense because she seems like a pretty confident person growing up.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, you tell me. But I will say this, and I do believe she's actually biological female. She just plays the role of a man really well.
Gutfeld closes it out by imagining Barack hearing Michelle's latest comment and running off to vote for Trump. At this point, Michelle's neutral image feels more like a carefully crafted performance than someone who's truly above the fray. Her memoir tour felt less like a book launch and more like a rock concert with a side of political guilt-tripping, and critics are done pretending they don't see through it. In the end, the Democrats keep pushing people away with this attitude, especially men. Instead of bringing voters in, they're scolding them. And if that doesn't change, they'll keep losing. Michelle Obama keeps saying she's all about inspiration, but critics like Gutfeld and Kat Timpf aren't buying it. They say her message sounds less like wisdom and more like a polished Instagram caption. Sure, she wrote a book, nothing wrong with that, but if you're going to give it a deep name, maybe it shouldn't read like a high school
Our minds, we weren't raised with the certainty of maleness that, kind of the confidence that young men in their 30s have, which they haven't earned. They just have it. We don't start feeling that and owning that until our 50s and 60s at a time when we start to be treated as invisible in society.
So true. And it reminds me of my new book, Women Are Invisible at Age 50, and I couldn't be happier.
Graduation speech run through a filter. Michelle talks about how deep under her husband's administration still bother her. Greg jokes that maybe she's trying to get Barack deported instead of just filing for divorce. He's clearly pointing out the contradiction. She's upset about deportations, but it happened under her own roof. When Michelle says she knows hardship, critics laugh. To them, her version of struggle is missing a luxury suite reservation or having to wear flats to an event. Kat Timpf jokes that Michelle's struggles sound like spoiled complaints dressed up as deep thoughts. Her words feel more like a TED Talk than something real people can relate to. Michelle also claims that women become invisible after 50, but Kat points out women are everywhere. On billboards, on TV, in commercials, in politics, and they're not exactly quiet about it either. So who exactly is invisible? Julie and Kat both say Michelle should stop trying to sound like a victim when she's one of the most visible women in the world. Kat even jokes that while she believes Michelle is biologically female, she definitely knows how to play a dominant role, and that she carries herself more like a politician than a
Michelle thinks American men suck.
Let me warn you, your rage does not exist in a vacuum. If we don't get this election right, your wife, your daughter, your mother, we as women will become collateral damage to your rage. To the women listening, we have every right to demand that the men in our lives do better.
Private citizen. Greg goes after Michelle's healthy eating campaign too. Sure, promoting health is good, but turning school lunches into sad piles of veggies didn't win hearts. It felt more like public shaming than support. Did quinoa ever help anyone stay in school? Probably not. Her speeches start with moral messages like when they go low, we go high, but end up sounding like she's looking down on everyone else. Michelle likes to say she's not in politics, but then she's all over Netflix documentaries with strong political messages. She'll give a speech that clearly pushes a political agenda, then act surprised when people call her out for being political. One minute she's handing out muffins for the camera. The next she's hinting at policy changes. It's confusing and very calculated. Greg jokes that if Michelle's brand gets any stronger, she'd probably name a star after herself. And Kat points out how every so-called authentic Michelle moment is perfectly lit, rehearsed, and filmed like a Netflix trailer. She shows up on late-night shows, and every host turns into a blushing fan, praising her for saying things like, take care of yourself, as if she just solved world peace. Meanwhile, the people who are really brave, the ones working all-night shifts to support families, don't get applause. They don't get six-figure checks to speak at Ivy League schools. They just work.
has shown her allegiance to this nation, not by spewing anger and bitterness, but by living a life of service and always pushing the doors of opportunity open to others. She understands that most of us will never be afforded the grace of failing forward. We will never benefit from the affirmative action of generational wealth.
Generational wealth. Something good that now in the prism of liberal politics is very...
And that's the difference. Critics say Michelle's message feels more like branding than truth. It's polished, glamorous, and out of touch, and people are starting to notice. Michelle Obama thinks American men need to do better, and she doesn't hold back about it. In a recent podcast, she warned that if the next election doesn't go the way she wants, women will suffer. She says men's anger could end up hurting their wives, daughters, and mothers. Her message to women: demand more from the men in your lives. And then there's her podcast. If you haven't heard it, count yourself lucky. It sounds more like a motivational poster read out loud than a real conversation. It's full of soft advice and vague inspiration, even when she's talking about serious topics like politics or the economy. Kat Timpf nailed it. Every episode sounds like someone trying to sell you a coffee mug with an uplifting quote on it. Michelle also keeps trying to convince everyone that she's just like us. But let's be honest, most people don't fly to climate change events in private jets while
A liberal groundhog, Obama's popping up to warn us about how Trump's turning into a dictator.
We start drifting into something that is not consistent with American democracy. It is consistent with autocracies. We're not there yet completely, but I think that we are dangerously close to normalizing.
tweeting about saving the planet on the newest iPhone. Her idea of being relatable doesn't match real life. When she says she understands the struggles of everyday people, it feels as believable as a billionaire saying they miss cheap noodles. Greg Gutfeld points out how deep Michelle's reach into Hollywood is. With a massive Netflix deal, she gets to shape her public image exactly how she wants. Even her childhood gets turned into a dramatic movie scene. At this point, it wouldn't be a surprise if she ended up in a superhero movie next. She often gets praised for her grace and positive image, but Pat calls it out as a cover for constant judgment. Michelle has a polished way of speaking that feels more like a scolding than inspiration. She smiles while basically telling people that they're doing everything wrong, and somehow the media cheers for it. She's seen as separate from politics, but let's be real, she's been part of the system all along. Too many on the left. Michelle is like a comforting symbol, like a character from a feel-good movie. The media treats her like royalty, even giving full coverage to her fashion choice.
Men can't name masculine Democrats. So, Congresswoman, according to a new study by a think tank, young men struggle to name any masculine Democrat leaders besides Barack Obama, saying it's the Republican Party that best represent men's interests. Are you surprised by this? Where did the Dems go wrong?
Choices or snack recipes. Meanwhile, no one questions her or holds her accountable because they're afraid of the backlash. And now she's back in the spotlight, warning everyone about how Trump could turn into a dictator. It's the same message as before, dramatic, polished, and aimed at stirring fear. But instead of real solutions, it's more of the same vague warnings and perfectly worded statements. Michelle Obama might sound inspiring, but the critics say she's more brand than substance. Michelle Obama could wear a paper bag, and people would still call it fashion. Within minutes, it'd be sold out in high-end stores and called historic. Kat pointed out that her outfits are treated like political statements, as if a belt means she's making a diplomatic move. Calm down, it's just a belt. Greg joked that Michelle treats morality like a fitness goal. She tells people to be better, but only on her terms. Like riding a Peloton, she'd approve. She acts like she's America's moral guide, jumping into every debate like a news anchor chasing ratings. Kat took it further, saying Michelle is like someone who belongs on a cereal box, always offering advice but from a place of privilege. She talks like...
Meanwhile, here's former First Lady Michelle Obama last night.
Kamala has shown her allegiance to this nation, not by spewing anger and bitterness, but by living a life of service and always pushing the doors of opportunity open to others. She understands that most of us will never be afforded the grace of faith.
She's outside of politics, but she helped build the very system she now critiques. Meanwhile, young men today say they can't name a single masculine Democrat, except maybe Obama. They believe the Republican Party actually represents men better. That says a lot.